The full speech that King Charles gave to Congress just a couple of hours ago or so, really interesting, and it's reflected on a lot of the front pages tomorrow. Let's get the reaction of Ben Lord, who's a royal expert and commentator. Ben, hello, good evening.
Tony, good evening, hi.
Hi, what did you make of what he's had to say tonight?
Well, I think what we saw there was just supremely diplomatic, toned like a statesman, balanced on times with good humour as well in the context of what you would expect of a special relationship that at the very heart of this address was constantly referred to. He, whilst on the one hand acknowledging some of the geopolitical difficulties that are very much originating from America's actions in recent weeks, he doesn't seek to go into the nuances of perhaps some of the language and things that have been said by the president towards our prime minister and towards other countries, even including Australia, who of course the king is head of state to as well. So I think that he really has diffused some of the tension, and I think the Foreign Office and indeed the government will be somewhat breathing a sigh of relief that his speech was as good as it was.
Yeah, I said before we went into it that it's his attempt to try and reset the relationship. We all know the difficulties that Keir Starmer's had recently with Donald Trump. Interestingly, Ben, it doesn't always happen here on 5 Live, but people have been sending their reviews in as the speech was going out. And by and large, they're all fully in support of the King. That Stuart in Canterbury says, "Evening all. For me, that sounded like a know your place kind of speech from King Charles. Exactly what was needed. Fair play to him." And Dave makes a point, which I was going to make anyway, but I'll let Dave make it because he's texted it in. He says there was a very big cheer for Charles when he referred to the executive being restrained by checks and balances. Interesting. And there were a couple of moments, weren't there, Ben, during that speech when you heard shouts of support from various sides in Congress. But that sentence, that executive power should be subject to checks and balances, that was quite significant, do you think?
It was quite a compelling statement, and it demonstrates that, however much authority that the incumbent president feels he has in leading America in the various ways that he is of late, he is not immune to scrutiny. He is not immune to legal challenge, whether that be from within his own members of Congress or on the wider world stage, where indeed it could be argued he has got quite the justification to be doing and saying in underpinning the actions that he's taken America to in recent weeks. So I think it's really interesting how the King very much did give the tone, as that listener said, of know your place, Mr. President. But just on that, just to supplement to that, then just hold that thought, but continue it in a second, because we've seen lots of world leaders go to the White House and do this diplomatic dance, haven't they, or tightrope walk? Because towards the end as well, he said America's words carry weight and meaning, and their actions even more. And Donald Trump, I wonder a penny for his thoughts hearing that. Well, there's various quotes that came out of that 28-minute speech this evening that if you would like to hope the president will be really reflecting it. I mean, he's absolutely loving the fact that he's got the most famous man in the world, probably short of the Pope, that he's hosting at the moment. And therefore he will be, adulating in the pomp and ceremony around it all and feeling really, ego charged by it. But nevertheless, the King, much like his mother, is absolutely there to carry the baton of diplomatic relations, and referencing things like the special ingredient underpins our special relationship, and really using a reconciliatory tone to say that we always find a way to come together. And I think that that really demonstrates that he's using the 250th anniversary of American independence to reconsummate our country's special relationship there in saying, look, you need to put the interests of your country and that of your people and the peoples of the world before whatever your political agenda is.
Yeah. We could go on because he referenced NATO and the fact that the only time Article 5 has been called in was after 9/11, and the same resolve is needed now in the defence of Ukraine. Catherine's been in touch from LA, who's a Brit there. She says, I loved how he quoted the Constitution. Yes, the cheer was important. As my American kid is studying this studying this in US history, I just gave him a nudge to listen to the core of the speech. So, and also, I mean, a lot of the papers here, Ben, have picked up on the line where he said we should support victims of ills in society today, without referencing Jeffrey Epstein. That's being taken as a reference. Obviously, we know about the travails of his brother Andrew. That's been taken as a reference to the victims of Epstein. Do you read that into it?
Yeah, I mean, that's a clear nod without giving express words as to what the definition of what he said there. So I think that's probably as close as perhaps is going to be heard around that particular scandal during this visit, because obviously this visit, whilst the palace continues to always reference the victims and keeping them foremost in mind of that Epstein scandal, this visit is very much about rekindling and getting the spirit of the special relationship back on track.
Yeah. And the zinger of the day for me, I always like a little bit of humour in speeches, when he said 250 years ago, or as we say in England or UK, just the other day. I thought that was a great line.
Well, that was a great line. It reminds me of when I had an American friend come to visit a few years ago, and the pub in my village is about 500 years old. And as we walked in on her first visit, I said, "You do realise my village local is older than your country?"
Yeah. I heard a guide in America. I've forgotten the line now. But a guide in Edinburgh, and he was saying, over there, here we've got the old town, over there we've got the new town, which is older than your town. It was kind of that line anyway. Hey ho, Ben. I mean, Donald Trump's due on his feet at the banquet at the White House later. I think 1 a.m. our time. So presumably he gets a chance to reply. Does he? Maybe to some of that. I don't know.
Well, I mean, for sure, he will be, as he has been already in the last 24 hours, full of adulation and welcome to the King and Queen. I think one thing that he will definitely be representing, which indeed, he has in some of the rhetoric that has come out today, but also what you saw from the chamber in Congress there, is that we've always known in this country, I think it's fair to say, that America has been absolutely green with envy that we have this constitutional monarchy that is the most famous in the world, that is the most enduring in the world. And I think that they really wish they had that, which is why they are almost gushing at the notion that they've got the British King and Queen there at the moment. And I think that, whatever Trump has to say later will probably reflect many of what American citizens feel towards our royal family.
We shall see. Ben, great to talk to you. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Royal expert and commentator Ben Lord there, reacting to that speech we've just heard. We've all heard from King Charles at Congress tonight. As